I speak a forgotten language. I'm not fluent. I'm barely able to communicate. This language has alien syntax. It pushes back at every turn. It wants to fade, to escape into obscurity, to exist only as memory. But I'm not done with it. I won't let it go gentle, because somewhere in this language there's poetry, and I'm going to try to coax it out. This, my friends, is APS photography, my first information exchange in Language 9.
For the last several years, I've been building a small collection of APS cameras. Here they are. Let's talk about the first one. But before we get granular, how's about we zoom out for a moment? For those of you new to APS, it's a film format that launched in the 90s. It promised features, flexibility, and ease of use beyond what was available for 35mm film, at the cost of a smaller negative, a 1.25 times crop in 16:9 aspect ratio. Here's a roll of film. This little cartridge is an engineering marvel, full of gears and automation. It drops right into the camera with no fuss. The camera takes over with advancing, rewinding, and in some bodies you can even do something called mid-roll change, which allows you to switch film stocks on the fly. Think of it like a Hasselblad 500 roll film back, but miniaturized. That engineering, however, comes with trade-offs, like the fact that you can't as easily develop at home. Cracking open the cartridge just to get to the film is a trick in itself. And when you developed a roll of this stuff back in the day, the whole cartridge was returned with the developed film inside. Flash forward, that adds a wrinkle to home scanning. This format launched in a tough era too, because digital cameras were in their ascendancy. There just wasn't enough time for APS to really get a foothold, so it didn't. And the whole thing flamed out after 15 years, the last 10 of which offered relatively little in the way of innovation. Companies stopped producing film in 2011, so every roll you now come across is expired, some expired by decades.
The 9 is a forgotten language.
But it's a beautiful one because the cameras built to use this format were startlingly compact marvels when compared to their 35mm forebears. Check out this side-by-side of the Contax T9 and this Nikon L35AF. And then just for kicks, let's add in the Canon ELPH Jr. with a f2.8 lens. Come on now. And the camera's had a few additional tricks too. This T9 can shoot in 3 aspect ratios, though in fairness it shoots everything at max size and writes onto this magnetic strip how each negative is to be printed. But you can compose in 3 different aspect ratios at the very least. Enough preamble, let's talk about my experience. And if you'd like to know more about how I came to own this particular camera, there's a video on my channel that tells the whole salacious story. In the time since that video, I've put 2 rolls through this little treat, which has a few features that really float my boat. Because so many of these cameras are automatic, it can be difficult to alter the exposure to compensate for the age of the film stock. Conventional wisdom says add a stop of light for every decade of expiration, you see. Conveniently, the T9 has an exposure compensation setting, so I ran a little experiment. I had 2 identical rolls of film from 2007. I shot one at box speed and the other at plus 1.3 to see what difference it would make. And it did make a little difference, I think. The lab, Process 1 in Kansas, did what they do in post to get proper exposure on the scans, and there are a few rough patches in the shadows of the box speed images with more noise and less detail. But candidly, some of the new 35mm film I sent in the same order looked comparable in the shadows. So I can't say for sure how much was the film, how much was processing, how much was camera metering. But long story short, the film captures images whether or not I bump the exposure compensation, which means I have options in terms of which cameras I use going forward. In other words, I could shoot the cams that don't offer exposure comp or the ability to manually set ISO. So full speed ahead, let's look at some images from the great American Midwest so that you can get a sense of what process shots look like through a Contax T9 on longly expired APS 200 speed film. Okay, so the key takeaway for me is that the system works, and the Contax is a cool camera to shoot with a few quirks, so let's start with the good. Number 1, it's small and sturdy and easily fits in a pocket. Number 2, you can shoot an aperture priority, all the way to f2.8. It's this ring right here on the front. You can also make it full auto using its program mode. Number 3, the autofocus is solid. It missed a couple times, but the hit rate was well within the acceptable range. Number 4, it has more flexibility than some, meaning you can bump the exposure comp, set a self-timer, turn off the flash if you're in a museum, etc., etc. Number 5, the shutter is quiet, très discreet. And now the rest. Number 1, remember how I mentioned the quiet shutter? Well, the film advance more than makes up for it by being comically loud relative to my other APS cameras. It's like a tiny rock tumbler. I'm told the mechanism is overbuilt and this is a feature rather than a bug, but it definitely turned a few heads. Number 2, the viewfinder is pretty pedestrian. It's just a rangefinder style window with some frame lines that loosely match the aspect ratio. No masking, no info about shutter speed, just those lines plus indicators of focus confirmation and flash status. By contrast, even my Canon IX-US cams, which feature similar rangefinder-style viewfinders, mask off so that you can more easily compose for your selected aspect ratio, and it would be really handy to know the shutter speed in the viewfinder. Number 3. But if you do want to know your shutter speed or other info like exposure comp, that'll be in the rear screen, which is small and dark. It works, but it's a hassle to pull the camera away from your eye to confirm those settings while shooting. Overall, I consider the first chapter in my APS experience a success, and so I decided to double down by buying this. It's a whole box of film from Goodwill that contained a bunch of expired 35mm, but more germane to our conversation, 8 rolls of APS film. With the 3 rolls that I had remaining from earlier purchases, that means I now have 11 more rolls with which to experiment. Which brings us neatly to this. This tasty treat has 3 tricks up its sleeve. First, it allows you to manually set the ISO. So when I put in a roll of 400 speed that's 24 years old, I'm able to set the ISO at 100 to give it more light. But 100 speed film is pretty slow, right? Enter trick number 2, the EF mount. Yes, this takes regular old EF mount glass, like this 50mm f1.4, so I can feed that film more of the light it so desires. Lastly, this camera supports mid-roll change, so if I want to shoot a different roll, I could pop out the film that's in there and go back to it later. I don't have any special stock at the moment, but if I ever run across a roll of black and white, or if some mad scientist spools up some aerochrome, I can make it happen without wasting or rushing the other precious roll. So let's wrap up for now. I'm ready to see what this format can do through Canon glass. Indeed, I think a Canon 40mm f2.8 would make a nice compact combo on the EOS 9, so I may try to score one of those as well. And then there's the matter of the other APS cams, each of which has some wiggle in their walk. Hey, thanks for stopping by. Happy shooting, and have a great day.